So my name's Ibrahim Dambi, formerly Edward Charles Dambi. I'm 38 years old and I've been a Muslim now for 19 years. I embraced Islam in 1995 while studying at university, and since that time I've been trying to learn more about Islam and practice Islam as best as I can do. So my first experience with Muslims or Islam was actually when I was quite a young age. I was probably around 13 or 14, and a new boy had come to school. His name was Suhail, and he was the first Muslim really that I had met. And he came into my class, and I was intrigued about his lifestyle, the way that he conducted himself, and the way that he showed a dedication to learning the holy book of Islam known as the Quran. In fact, it used to fascinate me how every evening after school he would go to the mosque and he would dedicate 2 hours, minimum of 2 hours of his time learning how to recite and how to memorize the Quran. So this for me was quite profound, in the sense that somebody so young yet so dedicated to his religion. So this was the first person really who I met who was a Muslim and who really took his religion seriously. And then as I became older and I went to university, in fact even before I went to university, at college, I became friends with many Muslims, and they told me little bits about Islam. I remember having a friend called Nadeem. He told me about how Islam was in complete 100% compatibility with modern science, and they would tell me little things about Islam and about the Prophet Muhammad, which intrigued me and it made me interested. I suppose one thing that it made me think was, why are these people my age so interested in religion, yet I was completely really not interested in religion, or not really interested in my faith, which was growing up in a Christian family as such. So fast forwarding to when I had the opportunity to go to university, I was studying in London, and it was at that point studying in London that, as you know, London is very cosmopolitan. There are many Muslims, thousands of Muslims, and it was at this point then when I really started to think about Islam more seriously. I had a good friend who was a Muslim, and one day I decided that, as my university was very close to the central mosque in London, I decided to make the decision of going into the mosque and to actually see what it was like inside a mosque. I'd never been in a mosque before, and I was really interested in exactly what happened inside a mosque. So at that point, it happened to be in the month of Ramadan. At that point, I made the first trip to the mosque, which for me was the first point really that I decided, or at that point then I decided that perhaps Islam for me is in fact the true faith. I kept going to the mosque after several weeks. I've got lots of literature, lots of information, and it really started to have an impact on me, and I started to think about Islam in a different light. And I really started to think, well, perhaps what I'm actually being told here, maybe there is some truth in it. And upon reading the Quran, obviously in the English language, and reading many of the books around Islam, I then eventually came to the conclusion that Islam for me was the truth. And it was at that point then that I made my testimony of faith, or the Shahada in Arabic, which I did in the mosque in London. And it was that point then my journey started as a Muslim, as a young British man becoming a Muslim. So then after I'd become a Muslim, I returned back to Nottingham, and which was my hometown. I then started to try and find out. Obviously I wasn't a Muslim when I left Nottingham, and then tried to find out about the local mosques, where I could buy halal meat, and how I could start getting involved in the Muslim community in Nottingham. And I managed to find a very welcoming mosque. They invited me into the mosque and made me feel very welcome. And it was at that point then I started to practice Islam more, learn about Islam, and as they say, as the story unfolds from this point onwards. So now I'm 38 years old, I'm a school teacher, I have a family, I have 5 children, and when I look back at how I became a Muslim, it still surprises me to this day how I made that decision. However, one thing I can say is that I hold no regrets at all about becoming a Muslim. I feel spiritually content, I realise what my purpose in life is. Yes, I have my ups and my downs, as everybody in life does. However, Islam gives me that bedrock, that foundation, that strength of faith, which allows me to enjoy life, and I would never ever consider not becoming a Muslim. Is something which now is part of me, and God willing, I hope to die as a Muslim and to continue. So one of the important things that I'm really interested, a passion of mine, is trying to remove the misconceptions about Islam and about Muslims. One thing that's happened in my time anyway is that Islam has because of the media and because of all the negative attention, has received a bad image. And one of the things that I would want to try and do is for British people to understand that Islam has a message of peace, has a message of unity, and is essentially, in its essence, a peaceful faith, and a faith that people have nothing to be scared of. In fact, something that can bring something to their lives and actually contribute to British society. So one of my passions is to talk about Islam and to educate people about Islam, and that is the true message of Islam. And as you can see, I'm standing behind one of our information points. This is a place where people can come, pick up information about Islam, about leaflets, booklets, etc. And they can have a conversation with a Muslim, which is important. Many people think they know about Islam, but in fact they really don't know about Islam. And it's only through talking to Muslims and having that dialogue can they really understand what the message of Islam is, through speaking to Muslims. And I would recommend anybody that wants to find out about Islam or has an opinion about Islam, speak to a Muslim. So one of the things that's changed in Nottingham since I became a Muslim anyway is there are lots more native English British people becoming Muslim, and it's important, I suppose, one of my roles is to help them, like I did when I first became Muslim, help them with giving them guidance and advice and how they can actually practice their faith. Maybe they have family members who aren't Muslims, how to approach that situation. And this is one of the things that I try and do and help Nottingham Islam Information Point in doing this important job. So my parents, as many British parents would admit, they knew very little about Islam. They had heard only about Islam through the media, through the television, so their understanding of Islam was very limited, as mine was. But through dialogue, from me talking to them, explaining to them, and more importantly, me practicing Islam, then they came to realise, well, in fact, Islam was actually giving me, in terms of my life, spiritual contentment. It was helping me in my life. They could see that it was a positive thing, and in fact, not a negative thing at all. So they were, once they'd realised what Islam was giving me, they were 100% behind me. They were happy for my decision. In fact, they were very positive about it. And that was a good thing for me.